Oh no, they're turning on each other.
We just regulate it and make it safer. And
the statistics are bullshit argument. Bold. Ooh, she's too smart.
So I was trying to.
Hey everybody, tonight we're debating whether or not sex work is good or bad for society, and we are starting right now.
Subway, man.
Rachel's opening statement. Thanks so much for being with us, Rachel. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, James, for having me on. This is, I think, my third or fourth time being here, so it's great to be back. If we are talking about whether or not sex work is good or bad for society, that's a moral question. So right off the bat, we have to kind of distinguish. We're not talking about legality necessarily. We're talking about morality, whether it's good for society.
He's got Subway on his beard. He's eating it now.
I think that the focus is going to
He's an animal. He can't be
stopped. We don't want to get into a bunch of philosophical and religious arguments because that's not going to be within the scope of what we're trying to do. So we should probably take a look at things like statistics, studies, outcomes, things like that. We can look around the world and see places where sex work is legal, where it is not, and what the implications of those things are, so that we can see if there's more sex work, whether legal or not, are there better outcomes? If sex work is illegal or there's less of it somewhere, because of that, then is it good or bad? So that's the position I would take, is that it is bad for society as a whole, because we have multiple studies, a huge one, which I can drop into the chat or
huge
if you guys
one.
want, but it's from Harvard, 2014, massive study where they looked at human trafficking inflows related to that country's sex work trade. So if it was legal and more ubiquitous, the human trafficking inflows were much higher in those countries. In places where there is less sex work, where it's not usually legal, there tends to be less human trafficking, less illegal sex trafficking. So the more sex work you have, the more permissible it is, the more legal it is. It's actually worse when the traditional argument is that we just need to take away the stigma, normalize it, make it safe and regulated, and it takes away the problem. But that's not what we see when we actually evaluate the evidence. So that would be my position.
Okay,
you got it. Thank you very much for that opening. And folks, visually, just so you guys know what's going on, Rachel, who you can see on your left, as well as Lav just below her, are taking the generally, you could say, sex work is generally not good for society position. And then on the right side of the screen, Polly and Ashley are taking the yes position, that is generally good for society.
I just watched a video by Peter Bogdash claiming speech is not violent in any way. Thoughts?
I don't know. Depends how you view it.
As well, thanks so much for being with us, Lav.
That's a tough one.
Yours.
Thanks. I'm Lav. I'm new into this whole political sphere. I did sex work for 6 years. I'm 24, and it had like unimaginable consequences on my life. And I'm basically like devoting a lot of my platform to let women and young girls or anyone going into sex work what they're up against and what they could potentially deal with. And everything is basically just like my opinion, obviously. But yeah, I think generally I want to exist and contribute in a world where women are made for and with purpose and not for purchase. I'm a feminist first and foremost, and I think that without even having a moral argument, because a moral argument can be made, I think that it's just not like conducive to women's liberation in general, is the selling of sex in women's bodies and commodifying them. So
you got it. Thank you for that opening as well. Also, before we kick it over to the generally good position side, want to let you know, folks, if you had not noticed, in the live chat, I had pinned a comment saying 100% of tonight's super chats are going to the Domestic Violence Action Center. It's a charity with a great charity watchdog rating. They're linked in the description if you'd like to learn more about them. And 100% of the super chats, as I said, including the 30% that YouTube usually takes, is going to that charity. So we're going to kick it over to Polly. Thanks for being with us. The floor is all yours.
Wow.
They can't hear you yet, in case you're on mute.
Good one, Polly.
Hi, I am pro-sex work, of course. I think sex work is real work. The problem with sex work is that the work itself is criminal, which creates unnecessary dangers for both buyer and seller. I think the typical, well, it seems interesting, that a conservative person is arguing consequentialist moral philosophy with respect to whether sex work is good or bad. I guess that serves her purpose for this specific issue. However, she's doing something that would be considered wrong in other areas, like the idea nobody's for human trafficking. Human trafficking's bad. We should stop human trafficking, particularly sex trafficking, particularly the worst kind of sex trafficking of minors. Nobody's for that. You don't typically make something illegal simply because people illegally traffic off of it. You know, we might have the decriminalization of drugs, for example, if we focused on the trafficking issue. Usually we try to prescribe the things that are wrong with it. Moreover, I'm going to take the position that making sex work illegal is actually pro-patriarchy. It is not liberating to women or to anybody. It is also making sex work illegal limits choices that can be made by free people. So, you know, there's a freedom argument for it. You know, I just look forward to seeing what other people are saying, and I'll respond to it.
Wow.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening as well, Polly. And we'll kick it over to Ashley.
Let's kick it over to Ashley.
With us, Ashley, the floor is all yours.
What do you got, Ashley?
Hi, my name is Ashley.
What up?
I'd like to introduce myself by saying that I about 3 months ago was an incredible, super hardcore feminist, and then doing my research into why I was such a hardcore feminist and anti-man, etc., I realized that I wasn't as much of a modern day feminist, more of a traditional feminist. Having said that, I like to kind of take a point of view on both sides of the spectrum. Also, I've never been involved in any type of sex work whatsoever. I'm just more, I kind of err more on the side of plain devil's advocate. And I do not think, I do not agree that sex work is necessarily bad. I agree with Polly's statement. I can correlate it to the to making drugs illegal, and kind of.
I thought you were about to drop some bars.
Sex work. I'm kind of curious because I've been reading some things about what Rachel said, and it's interesting that her study was from 2014. I think that maybe her and I could have some points of discussion there, but my overall stance is that while I personally may not participate in sex work, I also do not want to impose my beliefs, views, morals, or stances on societal appropriation to whether or not sex work is okay versus not okay.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening, Ashley, as well. Want to let you know, folks, if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, we are a neutral platform hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. We hope you feel welcome no matter what walk of life you were from.
Science, religion, and politics, guys. That's a lot of things.
Plenty more debates and panels coming up. You don't want to miss them. Hit that subscribe button now. And with that, thank you very much to our guests.
Let's kick it off.
The floor is all yours for that open dialogue.
I guess I would pose the question to the panel: how is the oppressive nature of sex work? How can you distinguish that from just ordinary capitalism? I think a lot of the arguments I see people make about sex work is that, well, you're induced to do things you might not otherwise like to do with your body for money. That sounds a lot like just a regular job. So, how do you distinguish it?
Well, I think a major distinguishing feature, which maybe Lav can speak to better than I can, based on her opening statement, is that for one thing, it's not something that ages well, right? So you may have to take a job you don't like when you're young because you're inexperienced, you don't have a lot of skills yet, but you can work your way up into things. You can get an education, you can learn skills, and you can get yourself a better job. You can find something that you do enjoy doing to make money. However, even if sex work is something you like to do when you're young, you age out of it very quickly. That's, to me, one of the biggest pitfalls of it, practically speaking.
How quickly would you say is very
so
quickly?
So nobody should ever be a gymnast.
Well, I would never recommend, I would never recommend being a gymnast for a career necessarily. No, that's going to be like a top 0.05% of all gymnasts in the world, and you're done with gymnastics by the time.
So then, after gymnastics and that career's over with, then you can move on and find new skills.
Well, the thing about something like gymnastics is you can coach, you can teach. There's other avenues, but
if you
as
don't
far as
want to do
sex
that,
work,
you could.
I think one of the biggest things is safety. So we know that sex work is one of like the most dangerous jobs like imaginable.
Well,
and there's like no option for unionizing, and people are actually
OnlyFans sex work or sex work
unionizing for sex workers because of like what that means. So I think that there's like a lot, but I think that mostly it's like how unsafe it is for women without regulation to be like thrown to the wolves, so to speak. Yeah, I think that's like the biggest thing is like your chance of like dying working at Taco Bell is very little, and your chance of dying or being raped through this line of work is like exponentially higher than any other job available.
That's a good point.
I mean, that sounds like an argument for decriminalization or legalization.
That's why I don't make that argument, because then what?
Oh no, they're turning on each other.
You just regulate it and make it safer, and then it's fine. But I lived in Nevada, in Reno, for 5 years.
Yeah.
Where prostitution is legal. We had the Bunny Ranch. I knew some of the girls there. I was doing hair and makeup at the time and got to know a few of them. It is not the glamour and wonderful life that you think it is. There's still a ton of drugs.
Who thinks it's glamour and wonderful? I've never thought
plenty of women.
Plenty of women do.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No,
no.
Hold on.
Sure
that everybody can hear.
I would like to make it very clear. I don't know how old you guys are. I'm 24, so
I'm 36.
Age
so I'm
coming
a
out.
Zoomer, and I grew into like an internet age where OnlyFans is thrust upon you the second you turn 18. On TikTok, on Twitter, on everything.
How does OnlyFans compare to working at the Bunny Ranch? You're not going to get raped when you're OnlyFans person, right?
No, but the pipeline into sex work desensitizes you to other forms of sex work.
So that's like saying that like you smoke weed, then you're going to become a heroin addict. Like,
a lot of people do. I'm not saying that OnlyFans.
Okay.
I don't know what you think my argument or my prescription is on that. I'm just saying that like if you're so desensitized to commodifying and objectifying your body for financial gain, you're going to be like, okay, well, I have.
But that's capitalism.
I
mean, you're.
I disagree.
Finish. Instead of interrupting, just to hear the rest. Lav, go ahead and finish.
Yeah, but you're going to be like, yeah, I have sex for free, but so I might as well charge, right? That's like exactly how I went into it. I was like, you know, I'm a free woman. I'm 18. This is my body. This is empowering. I'm making money from it. I came from like, you know, very humble beginnings, right? So this is like the first time I ever get to see real money, and then I'm like, oh fuck, like this is ideal for me, right? The problem is that then, you know, the other things come. But I also think as far as like legalizing it, we actually, like Rachel said earlier, we know that like the industry existing in itself, bad people are able to use those laws for the wrong reasons because it exists. What I think is that we should decriminalize it for the workers, but we should criminalize Johns. I think that we should criminalize people paying for it. That's what I think we should do. That's the Nordic model.
Yeah, and I can support that argument by saying pornography is legal. We have a very strictly regulated, legal pornography industry, and the horror stories that come out of it would whiten your hair. So legalizing things, destigmatizing things, and regulating things does not take away the nature of that thing, which is inherently exploitative.
I think it's also like a matter of how used to objectifying women you are also, because I think if we were to say like, oh, if kids wanted to do this, if they thought it was empowering, we should be able to, right? Like
that's ridiculous. Nobody's
why is that so ridiculous?
Look, can I please interject? So I want to hear an argument, because all I've heard so far are arguments to the effect that you're using your body in ways you might not otherwise would have for money. Some people who are already desensitized to the type of work that you would engage in sex work are more likely to engage in that work. Just like anybody may choose a job based on a bunch of choices that they may not like, based on something they may otherwise be able to tolerate, right? This is capitalism. This is like free market shit you're talking about. If you want to argue about, you know, the problems about capitalism, you can go there, but this is about sex work, which is, you know, something that is specific. I want to hear a specific critique that applies to sex work and not just selling your labor, not just like wage slavery, for example. And
so we did.
You know, anecdotes aren't going to get you there. You know, like horror stories.
So it is obviously more dangerous.
No. flat out, just like with
Uh-oh.
anything, this isn't going to go away. It's not going away. Whether we legalize it and regulate it or we don't, it's going to be there forever. So what is your fucking argument?
First of all, why are you so angry and yelling at
people
everyone?
are
Have
also-
you never
Why did she go like
figured
0 to
out
100?
People are also molesting children, and it's never gonna stop, right? So we just make it a free for all.
Exactly.
What?
No, there
Molesting
are rules and
children?
regulations.
Yeah, that's always been a
molesting
thing, and it's
children.
always going to be a thing.
It's
And-
always gonna be a thing.
And opioid addiction has
killing
always been a
people,
thing, and it's
murder.
always going to be a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and we have
Always a
regulations on it, and
Murder, always a
we're
thing.
I have a sister who's a heroin addict. I get opioid addiction.
Sorry, that's not
You're
funny.
not used to making arguments, are you? Do you have an argument, or are you just going to yell at everyone? You're being very obnoxious.
Ooh.
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate that. I do have an argument. The argument is just like with drugs, it's never going to go away. Yes, you can argue that. You can go down rabbit holes all you want, but the fact is that people want sex. People are going to pay for sex, and women and men are going to sell their bodies for sex. So do you want to regulate it just like with drugs? Or do you want to sit here and say that just no, period, end of story, and then we go back to like prohibition times?
I don't think.
You see what I'm saying? Like it's not
and
going
anyone-
to go away.
Has anyone even
So do you
prescribed
want
anything?
do you want to err on the side of caution, or do you want to err on the side of just say no, it's not good, deregulate it, everything's illegal, period, end of story? Also, with sex trafficking, I mean, I've looked up the study you're talking about. There are statistics. You can find statistics for statistics until you're blue in the face. But one thing said that
the
nearly 90%
statistics are
of the federal
bullshit
government's
argument.
24
Bold.
million trafficking prevention budget was used to arrest consensual adult sex workers rather than detect traffickers or assist victims. This is in 2020.
Who's to say who's a victim, though?
So the reason
What
why
is
that
that?
argument is worthy of your addressing of it is that, you know, your argument was essentially consequentialist. So if a lot of these types of transactions are going to happen between adults, you know, we can just say kids, that's bad. That's bad, right? You know, if these types of transactions are going to happen between adults anyway, why not make it safe?
Exactly. Or try to make it as safe as you can.
Sure.
I wouldn't trust her studies at all. I mean, it's a pretty commonly held thing. I think there's like one or two big studies on it that show that like the amount of trafficking and shit increases when you.
And make these things
What
acceptable.
is someone's
it
opinion is
perpetuates
what is
it.
good for society, though? Then you do get into that rabbit hole of morality.
Yeah, sure, and I will go there if you want to go there. And what
Well,
we're,
you said
Lav and I
specifically you
are
weren't
both
going.
I want to
saying
hear
that's-
Rachel out. You know, I want to hear what you have to say.
Lav and I were both trying to make the point that even if you get into sex work voluntarily, even if you say, yes, I'm using my liberty and freedom to do this for myself because I think it's going to be good, very few people
It's gonna
come
be
out of
good. I
this.
think they just want to make money. Like,
Well, yeah. I mean,
That's the thing, is what I'm saying is that it lends itself to far bigger problems. It's not just a simple transaction. And if you are somebody that cares about people and cares about society, you look at the entire problem and you see that it lends itself to exploitation.
What would you prescribe as far as sex work goes?
And
I don't know. That's
it ends with more
be a
human
tough one.
trafficking, more sex trafficking,
I
bigger
don't know if I have a
sex
strong feeling on it.
industries in general. And so, do you want
Also,
to
just like
encourage?
the
Do you want to encourage making women into commodities? And
yes. In the
I think this argument.
I think I lean on the
is
side of
so
legalization, though.
rude. I really do. The whole
Concrete
point
steel
is
plate
rude because
radar.
I believe personally that it really does go back to morality. From everything you guys are saying, morality.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
it
talk
really
about
does.
yeah, it does. But you
Yeah,
can,
it does.
you can
Which is
debate
what you
that.
said. Which is what you said you weren't going to go into.
Well,
So-
no, I said I wasn't going to get philosophical. I've been on this channel before. I'm somebody who does a lot of philosophy debates, and when I do that, I kind of lose the whole audience here because
How do you
they
do
tend to be
morality
more
without
empirical and,
philosophy?
not as deep into like metaphysics and
Well,
epistemology.
everyone's
is what I would
opinion on that can also vary.
What does that mean? Can somebody break that
that's
one
what I'm
down for me?
saying. So I'm trying to keep it within the purview of the show and say, look, we can look at what happens when we do this and the outcome is not better. Now, if you want to make a moral argument, then we have to get into how do we know what we ought or not ought do?
Exactly.
And then it becomes philosophical. So
So then I suppose
I'll
my
go whatever
argument,
way you guys
I
wanna
guess
go,
my
but-
point
Okay,
of
no,
my point
no,
of view on that is just that I feel like maybe this entire premise is just, to me, it feels like it does all go back to morality though. because my stance is that you're not going
we've
to
decided
make
it's
it go
morality.
away.
Let's engage with it on a moral stance.
Okay, all right. So can I just follow up on something Rachel said? You said that I think I've addressed specifically your point about human trafficking. It's a separate issue. That's not, we're not talking about sex work. Usually you criminalize the thing that you think is wrong. What is it about sex work specifically that if you think that a thinking adult who is exercising freedom and is choosing sex work out of a bunch of options, that might not be super appealing in this world. It might not be the only job you do. It might be your part-time gig. What is the greater problem that you were referring to?
The greater problem I was referring to is that the nature of sex work itself cannot be separated from the fact that it is exploitative. There's something different about selling your labor as far as, I'm going to go and work in an office, or I'm going to go with a hammer and nail and build stuff, versus I'm going to allow people to...
Or a soldier.
What? Yeah. I
So
mean,
what's the difference?
and you could get into moral arguments about if those things are good or bad too, but sex work
for morality.
Sex work is specific because
it's something
you
broken?
are the product. You're selling
Right.
your body, and if you have to be you have to be such a material reductionist that you believe that your body doesn't matter. Your body isn't you. Like, you almost have to think that it's not going to affect the person.
Yeah, but that's
think
a
it
story
doesn't
you're telling
affect-
yourself. So one of the things that's a healthy person can choose. I'm sure this is the case. A healthy person,
Oh shit, this is an
can choose
empty.
that it is
Fuck.
less degrading, and your body is less invaded in a sense by going into sex work versus working in retail, where you're stuck behind a counter or
That is the most
someplace
absurd
being.
thing.
Hold on a second. Let me finish my statement here. Being spoken to by customers, being dehumanized, and being paid far less for the privilege to do so. Certainly, somebody could make the decision, and people have. People say this all the time. That it's an easier life. It is a less terrible life than doing retail.
Okay.
Okay.
But that's also a story you're telling yourself.
But yeah, this is also for people who are like the top 5% of people who are able to do it from home, or who are safe, privileged, white, rich, able to do it. But for most people who are existing in this sphere, it's incredibly dangerous. There's so many things this is not.
Right, but that's a legalization argument once again. Like,
Exactly.
the fact that if you
100%.
if you think the making illegal of
I
sex
think
work
that- and I
is
think that we
oppressive
should
to the
talk
most
about-
marginalized, then you shouldn't. I mean, which is by the way the intent of making sex work.
I assume that you guys
Illegal.
think that men and women should be equal, right?
I assume that I assume this
course.
entire argument goes down to honestly whether or not legalizing it is going to be more beneficial or more detrimental to sex workers. That's what I think, because again, it's not going to go away. Okay, it's not going to go away.
Okay, so
Just
why,
like with
why
the
talk about
legalization of
anything?
marijuana, the legalization of certain. I mean,
So
we're
why talk
even
about
doing
anything?
psychic.
Why talk about
why-
anything? Why make murder illegal? Why do any of these things if it's just going to?
Now you're going down the morality rabbit hole.
No,
sister.
it's not a rabbit
Okay.
hole.
This is
It's a
not a rabbit
legitimate.
It
hole.
is a rabbit
No,
hole.
it's not. It is the logical consequence of the argument
Oof,
you're making.
logical
We're making
consequence.
arguments. You can't just pick and choose arbitrarily what
Yes,
applies
you
to
can.
what.
People
No,
do it
you
every
can't.
fucking day.
That's not
And-
how
and
you
moms do it
debate.
every day.
Then don't debate. Then go have a conversation on Facebook. But if you're here, you're trying to make an argument. You're trying to do a debate. And so
I think that okay.
you
So
have to
sex,
accept the logical
smoking pot,
implications of your own
drinking,
argument.
how is that not an argument when you go back to prohibition days? Okay, you could do the same thing then. Do you believe that alcohol should be illegal?
I believe that sex work is different than alcohol. There are
Okay, that again, it just goes down like you said. You
It
can't
doesn't.
pick and
You
choose.
can make an
You're
argument.
picking and choosing now.
No,
You're
it's
doing
not
the same thing.
arbitrary. No, it's not arbitrary at all, because there are some things that are better dealt with in different ways, right? There's
How
vice.
can you
so
sit here
so
and
when
tell
we're
me
if you
talking
let
that
me
I'm
talk,
picking and
I could
choosing?
explain, but you
You're
keep
just-
interrupting
you're
me
picking
and
and
going like
choosing.
this.
Hold on
You're
one second.
picking
All
and
right,
choosing
one
what
second.
you think is arbitrary.
What we need to do is I'm going to
Shit's getting
let
cray.
2 people, this is pre-planned, so this is not spontaneous. This is something that I discussed with them earlier in the day. 2 people will be joining in the panel in just a moment. However,
Oh, no.
just want to be sure that a couple of our speakers, for example, Lav, we haven't heard from you for a while. So feel free, Lav, if you have any thoughts before we let these speakers in.
It's not me. I don't know who's joining. That's not me.
All yours.
Thanks.
Absolutely not.
So I think that we should, instead of like this is bad because it makes people feel bad, I think we should also think about like how this is contributing to like the cultural zeitgeist in like how we treat and feel about women in general. Because I think that there's a big argument with like, you know, inside of feminism, like how we are like purposely like degrading ourselves necessarily to like go into work like this, and then it's just adding into the loop and feedback looping on this like this is not women's liberation. This is actually like
See, I agree with you on that.
Okay, hold on.
I agree
No,
with
no,
you
no.
on
I
that.
want to. No, I
do.
don't agree with you on that. I want to engage with
do.
you on that.
I do.
Oh my God! Please let me talk for something. Okay, look.
Whenever these up their
You
nose
asked me
moral
a question,
absolutists
do I
make the
think
but
men
you're
and
selling
women
your
should be
body
equal? I said
argument.
yes,
I'm
but we
curious
agree
why
that
no one stops to ask them which
patriarchy
part.
exists,
Exactly. What
right?
piece,
Patriarchy
talent,
exists,
or organ of your body do you
right?
part with?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
James was asking if you want to join in chat a minute ago. Wait, did he?
Okay,
Dude, I have
so-
to. I
so we are-
have to stop streaming past
Your
10 o'clock.
argument-
Okay, it's ruining my life. I have to be hard cutting my stream off.
A Destiny moderator is inviting
Is
you.
the standard like
Also 1 Timothy 2:12.
McKinnon type, you know, like boomer argument where you say because men and women are inherently equal, you're paying to access a woman's body, which is essentially paying to rape them or something like that, right? Because of the inherent difference in power, right? I mean,
Yes.
yeah, okay. So it is incumbent upon you, if you're going to make that argument, then to explain to me why patriarchy with respect to sex work is more oppressive than patriarchy with respect to virtually anything else. Like sex work is the only place, if I dare say, where a woman or a sex worker could actually paywall sex, right? You can't really do that any other place. So you can at least
You shouldn't be able
get
to.
something for, what's that? You should be able to paywall it?
No, like a woman's body is not like a product. Like a human body is not like a product.
We
yeah,
should
but,
discourage
yeah, but that's
selling
just words.
people.
I mean,
Yeah, we should definitely
discourage
discourage
selling
selling
people.
people. Yeah.
okay, then there
That's our
should be no.
argument.
But, okay, but that's an argument against capitalism again. You have to
No.
explain to me why.
Sorry,
selling-
socialist Polly, but no.
No, because
Oh, socialist Polly.
If I'm buying a
People do
medication,
service-
Absolutely
If I'm buying a
destroyed.
You can't
She's
be
losing it now.
masseuse or whatever because you're using your body to like deliver
No,
a fucking
no, we're
service.
saying
Or
you're
you can't be a
buying
doctor
or
or a
selling.
surgeon.
Okay, we don't sell organs, right? So why are we
Okay.
selling vaginas? Why are we selling people's orifices? Why are we
What?
selling
What?
bodies?
You're not.
Yes.
You're doing.
We
a
should not
service.
sell bodies. We
You
should
get to
not
keep
sell
your
people's
shit.
bodies parts.
No,
We
you're
should
not.
not sell people.
Again, morality.
Okay.
Yes,
Morality.
this is a moral question.
Every
My dear
time I have-
Ashley, I know this is
somebody-
your, I know
I
this
have
is your
walked
first
away
time
in one
debating,
piece.
but
Hold on.
that's what
I
it's
know that you
about.
keep
All
going
right,
to bring
I need
that
to
up
do this,
because I
but
challenge you.
Otherwise,
Rachel.
I've got to mute everybody. So just a second to restore order. Otherwise, if everybody's speaking over each other, they can't hear anybody.
True.
Let's go with Rachel. I think you had a question, so we'll give you.
Okay,
time
this
to
isn't
finish that
working.
question,
I have
then
to
we'll
have
go to
this-
Polly, and then we'll go to Ashley.
Fuck.
Yeah, so the difference in all of this, and yes, it is a moral question because this is about what's good, right? It's a moral question inherently. But we can debate moral questions without getting way off into metaphysics. We can keep it relatively practical and relatively within the realm of what people can understand practically. Yeah, but what we are arguing is that we don't think selling people, their body parts, people in general, their images, their video, their sexuality, things like that, we don't think that that's good for society. We don't think it's good for women. It does, you absolutely can't separate it from the objectification and the exploitation of women around the world or children. If you offer women's bodies as something that can be bought and sold, then you're encouraging buying and selling of women's bodies. That's far different than beer.
Okay, but it's not buying or selling a body. Every time you have sex with somebody,
Am I going
you
on?
get to
No,
keep your whole
fuck
body,
no.
right? The question is, what happens in the exchange? You know, or like the the surrounding circumstances before you have sex with somebody, right? It is not. They don't get to keep you, right? That's not what we're doing. That's trafficking. That's different. I know you confuse the two, but that's the beauty of it. It's no different than any sort of service that you do with your body, which is literally almost anything. There's some that's closer to sex work, like
Is there any
you know,
data on the quality of life of
or,
Dutch
you know,
prostitutes?
being
No
a
clue.
I feel like that's
for
the country
example,
you would look to.
Or just, you know, being somebody to talk to.
You could
You
try
know,
asking your mom though.
There's nothing. I mean, you can't distinguish sex work from really any other kind of work except for vague virtue signaling as to
really
morality.
quick, I just want to wrap it up.
Ooh, the VS argument comes
Ashley
out.
next. So
Virtue
unless Ashley
signal
wants to
has
defer to you,
been
Lav,
dropped.
Ashley, if you got a quick response, then I promise.
I do
Lav,
not
you're
want to defer to her. I want to say that yes, I have gotten a little bit upset. Yes, this is one of this is probably my 4th or 5th debate. Thank you, Rachel, for pointing that out. And I do appreciate that because I am learning etiquette and this is a learning experience for me. But I will say that I really do believe that you're wrong when you say that you said from the beginning, this isn't an issue of morality. Yet
No, that's not what I said.
Excuse me.
You keep saying that, but that's not what I
Ooh.
said.
Let's give Ashley a chance to finish. You got about 30 seconds.
Thank
Then
you.
we're going to kick it to
You
Lav,
did
and then
say
we'll go to
that. I
Rachel.
can record it and play it back for you later, sweets. But you did. And every argument you keep coming back to comes down to morality. Then again, you say, well, I'm differentiating between X, Y, and Z. Well, how can you do that? And then where does that take you? It all goes back to your personal decision and choice of what morality is and what you deem or believe to be okay and not okay. How do you say that that's this or that's that? Again, I go back to saying this isn't going to go away. Then I really like Polly's argument when she talks about, well, as a masseuse or anything that you're using your body for to make money.
Like the stream
right?
where he's going to
You're
close
not
the
actually
panel
selling a product,
and do gym
but
talk.
you are selling
I'm going to sleep
yourself.
soon, guys. I have to. I'm
In
sorry.
fact, you are. And then you also compared it to, well, I'm not going to illegally sell my kidneys or my liver or my organs, but yet you say that having sex with someone, you liken it to that. It's akin to selling your fucking kidney. And I don't see the correlation there. Again, I think it just goes back to what you believe is morally right or wrong and what's legal or not legal. Whereas I say, just like with the drug laws, just like with human trafficking, which again, you cited a fucking article from 2014. I found one from 2020.
Lav is the least annoying
2014?
Common left at W.
Come on, dude.
It's like 100 years
No.
ago.
Like this goes back to what your moral compass tells you is right or wrong. I'm saying, again, I've never done sex work. I don't want to because I agree with a lot of the points that you yourself make, but I don't see how it's going to go away, and I don't see how you're helping the problem or how at all saying like,
I don't
let's.
think the
It's like
debate is how to
teaching.
make it
All right,
giant
we're gonna kick it over to Lav.
ramble.
Excuse me.
Because it
It's
has
like
been-
teaching abstinence
We're going to let you wrap up
versus
this point.
teaching
Ashley.
contraceptives.
Ooh.
It's stupid.
Go ahead, Lav.
Okay, so I wanted to remind you, Ashley, that the debate isn't what we can do to make sex work go away. Is it good for society? And then I wanted to read a quote by Esperanza Fonseca, who is a transgender sex worker, feminist. Prostitution has never existed without violence, slavery, patriarchy, and class oppression. Prostitutes experience violence primarily because the relationship between the prostitute and the client is necessarily antagonistic. This session between a prostitute and her buyer is always a power struggle between the man and the woman, the buyer and the bought. Any prostitute knows this intuitively. Clients want us to do more for less money. We want to do less for more money. This isn't dependent on the disposition of the client. The structural positions of the buyer and the bot necessitate these interests. While you can say this antagonism does exist in all labor under capitalism, the difference is that when the power struggle is enacted in such a tangible way during sex, a sex that most in the trade were coerced into by material conditions, sexual violence is a necessary component of the equation. Every interaction as a prostitute is to fight a battle on the terrain of your own body. The prostitute is fighting for her right to bodily autonomy, and the client is fighting for his entitlement to her body. And I think that that is something that is really important to speak on when we're talking about, is this good for society? Because when we make
But it's a story. Okay, so like
We're gonna
that
kick it
sounds
over.
like
I did promise I'd
negotiate-
kick it over to Rachel next. So Lav, if you I'll give you like maybe 10 more seconds if you had anything else to add. Otherwise, we'll kick it to Rachel.
Yeah, just to wrap it up. Yeah, I think that again, the conversation is like, is it good for society? So like, we're not talking about like, is it God in the Christian lens? Is it good in the Christian lens? We're talking about how is this going to affect women in the future? Our daughters' daughters. What world are we setting up for other women? What are we making people think is okay to treat women? How to treat women? Adding to the cultural zeitgeist. That's the debate.
So this is morality. Like
Yes.
this whole thing is, yeah.
It is.
Sure,
This-
Okay.
Maybe Ashley
I
misheard
can go
me.
there then.
She might have misheard or misunderstood what I said at the beginning. I said
I guess I did.
it is a moral question. The nature of this debate panel is a moral question. I didn't want to get deep into metaphysics and epistemology because frankly it's over most people's heads.
Oh,
and
she's
I
too
just
smart.
used that. So I was trying to be okay.
Oh,
If you know a lot about philosophy, then you can just school me on it then. If you're gonna sit there and laugh like you do know about metaphysics and epistemology, I just kind of have a feeling you don't.
I just
So
kinda have a
Ooh,
feeling that
oh
you're
my
really full of
God.
yourself,
Absolutely
sweetheart.
destroyed.
No, I'm somebody who's experienced in doing this, and I'm trained in philosophy and.
She's
debate.
got training.
But on a panel like this, I'm not going to try to like sit here and do metaphysics because you're just gonna stare at me with a blank look on your face.
There's
So
no
I'm
point
trying
in.
to keep it
I'm not
within the
transmitting
realm of
this feel
something
signal
You're also
back.
very
Fuck me.
presumptuous and full of yourself, but okay.
You should brush your hair and put a bra on, but let's get back to the debate, shall we?
We have a Braun. Are you body shaming me, sweetheart?
Don't call me sweetheart.
Let's not get into
Let's
this.
do the debate.
Don't accuse me of not wearing a bra. sweetheart.
Men are watching and they're watching this and they're saying, hell yeah, these women are
True.
fucking ripping each other apart. Just
Actually
like they want us
true.
to. Let's not give them more fuel.
Speaking of men, one interesting question that I have, because don't get me wrong, I understand that you could say, well, how about let me ask you, what do you all think in terms of sex work? It seems probably intuitive.
I
and
do want to say I like that Rachel noticed my boobs. Thank you, Rachel.
seems pretty intuitive that probably women are. I mean, well, I'll ask you guys. Is it more likely that women or men are going to get hurt potentially in sex work, if anybody is, on average? Would everybody agree that it's women?
Absolutely.
Okay, gotcha.
I think that we would need, I think statistically probably, but I think that we would actually have to look into
Really?
the transgender and the homosexual side of things when it comes to sex work. And I think that we would need that point of view. I don't feel comfortable speaking on that platform personally.
Gotcha. Anybody else?
Right. Well,
Okay, I think I'm gonna host them. I'm gonna go to sleep.